Hello, I'm Katri Kolesnik, Head of Business Technology Forum. This is the 9th video of a series of interviews with business technology leaders. This year we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Business Technology Standard, and we decided to interview some CIOs and other business technology leaders from some of the most successful private and public sector organizations and share it through Business Technology Forum. Our 9th interview is with Galith Nadbornik, Managing Director of DigiSupply Oy. I met Galith in Espoo, Finland, where she is located, to talk about business technology past, present and future. Hello Galith.
Hi Katri.
Welcome to this interview.
Thank you.
So, let's talk about what has happened in the IT industry during the last 10 years. If you can start by saying what were you doing 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I believe I was still deep into testing and quality assurance, trying to make softwares and enterprise level work better. And I was discovering that good software quality simply means nothing if you don't have the context around it. So I was doing this for big companies, and at the time I believe I started with Nokia.
And if I remember correctly, you saying that that's when you actually saw the business technology standard the first time.
Actually, you have good memory, because that's correct. I met this baby framework back then in those years. We were building a new way of thinking around IT. And how does IT actually make sense to business? How do we talk about the same thing without using our jargon that gets them lost? And I remember one of the concept owner came to me and he said that, Galith, there is this model, it's called the hand model. And there is this company that's developing it. And we read it, it makes sense, but we think you can break it. I was like, okay, bring it to me, because I was a tester at the time. I was known to break all the systems, so they also brought me models. And I discovered that framework, and I actually liked it a lot because it was quite simple, and it used plain English words, which was very nice. And I did try to break it, but actually I realized that, discussing also with Juha at the time, that I was doing exactly what he expected from me. I was playing with the bits and pieces, making it modular and actually giving it a meaning for us. And I just liked it from that moment onward and brought it with me everywhere I went.
You said actually that the hand model, I don't think everybody knows why it was and has been called a hand. Can you explain where that comes from?
Yes, it's the thumb is up and then all the four fingers are left there.
Yes, it's like your left hand like this.
I guess so,
the demand
yes.
over here and the other streams over there.
Yes, that's how I was taught that it works. And it's visually, I'm a very visual person, so it kind of stayed really imprinted in my brain. And I like trying to find those 4 dimensions and how they really connect like all the fingers of one hand, which I think that's what we're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, it's about connecting all the teams, the concept, the value together. And it does it quite beautifully.
So now thinking of how IT has evolved, or the business has evolved actually, and how business has been using IT over the 10 years, can you sort of walk us through what you have been doing during this past 10 years and how do you see the evolution of IT as a profession throughout those years?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it comes down to where I came from. So maybe something that not many people know about me is I did not start as an engineer. I became an engineer later in my career. I started as a business and finance specialist. So my area was really about the business, the value, the return, the customer, the content. And moving to Finland, obviously, had its lot of lucks and mishaps. And one of them was I just could not, for the life of me, get any offer in finance and business. So the next best thing was technology. And I just fell in love with technology. But it took me a little while to learn really the rope and actually understand what it required. And there is hardcore skills needed to it. But it is a bit abstract. It's a little bit of a black box when you think about it from a business context, from a value context. The software, the integration, the platform, the hosting, back then, I'm talking now 15 years ago, it was a mystery. No one understood what we were really trying to do. And my area was in testing and quality. So I was there to make sure that those boxes actually had some kind of value. Whatever you put in and what came out was value. But interestingly, with the teams of engineers that were brilliant were working on, we sometimes lost context and a sense of value. And that was really where it all started for me, that because I was not born in technology, I was responsible for asking those weird, difficult, human-centric questions on what is this component really meant to do? You cannot be disconnecting the unit, the component from the whole. And the whole cannot be complete and cannot function if you don't have all the elements connecting together. And in essence, if I look at where I went and what I've accomplished and with which team I work together, it's really about that. It's about connecting the elements together to create value. And I think that's really where I am today as well. So trying to also bring not just the technology context to business, but maybe more importantly, the business context to technology.
So that's very interesting, actually, that you said that you fell in love with technology. I don't know if that happens a lot, but but then again, how about if you don't naturally just fall in love with technology? How can you sort of what can you do? How can you manage it still and really how much you really need to understand it as a sort of business person?
I love technology because when it's thought through from a value perspective, from a quality perspective, from a return perspective, the brilliance of the engineering brings immense value to the humans. And you don't have to fall in love with the components. I did, because I found out that that's actually fascinating. But you have to fall in love with the value. And to me, I think it's a wishful thinking of any business executive or technology executive who feel they can work without each other or function without each other. And that's what technology does. It forces you to contextualize, to connect the dots, to make choices, to strategize, and maybe also to collaborate between organizations that traditionally have had a little bit their own corners and their own place to operate.
So if we look at the other side, the technology side and the technology people and thinking back to those days, how the business technology standard was born and the reason why it was born, because there wasn't really a common language and it was to explain and clarify for the business people what the technology is all about. So what is the role of the technology people to really make the technology to serve the business and to serve the business purposes?
I don't know if you know that story of one of the programs we had built for warranty checks of cell phones, and we spent so much time and so much money building the best technology in our mind. And when it came time to release it to the world, I went actually in secret to one of the shops that was using it. And the feedback was devastating. They hated it. The performance was terrible. We had not understood their actual workflow. We hadn't understood how they interact with the customers at which point and what they needed really to support their experiences. Basically, they were a victim of our work. And I was so proud of it until that moment. But ultimately, where I kind of grew the most was in understanding that the best softwares mean nothing if they're not delivered by teams that function well. And, with that business context and how organizations operate. So I got completely obsessed about making not just technical system work well, but human systems, if you want. So organization, teams, not just IT, by the way, it can be any teams. But as I said, I love technology, so that's where my career is right now, kind of trying to organize not only teams, but companies, businesses, to define their strategies, not just on revenue maximization, but value maximization across their entire value chain. So understanding the customer journey, define how their companies operate. So what are the business capabilities that they need to actually deliver this strategic objective? Then define their data and insight flow. So what are the information, the KPIs, the scorecards, the indicators that gives them a sense of, are they succeeding? Do they need to work on something? Where are the opportunities? And then bring that to the technical landscape in which actually we have a lot of opportunities with all the incredible new platforms and innovations that are coming our way. and tie it all together with the human flow of information and people and responsibilities.
Today we talk about the era of business technology, meaning that there is no business without technology, and technology is business. You have been a CIO in one company, seeing all this happening. So what is the biggest challenge now for the companies?
In my opinion, navigating chaos. And we live in a chaotic world. I mean, last year has proven nothing more to us than we can survive it, but there is a need for focus. And one thing that has bothered me on a personal note is that technology has been often a disruptor of sound business strategy. So what I'm trying to say here is that taking all the input of information is vital, but still validating against the business objective is key. And technology disruption need to be understood in the context of the business strategy. So what I would like companies to understand is that they have immense assets already. They have executive team, they have operational team, they have maybe, factories, digital assets, intellectual properties. They have a lot of things. They have a supplier ecosystem, they have an existing technical landscape, they have processes, they have immense amount of data. There is a lot already. So the question isn't, should you add more? Should you make it more difficult, more complex? The question is, how do you map it all into a meaningful, value-centric picture where everyone feels like they belong to, that they have a part to play, that they understand the journey from idea to execution, and that they feel a stake into delivering with quality. And technology is a critical part of it, but it cannot be the driver. Because one thing we can't do in 2021 and in the future, and let's stop, is to make digital initiatives or enterprise IT a CIO only problem. It can no longer be it. This is a joint effort. We belong to the same organization. At the end of the day, we collaborate. We don't fight.
You said that you saw the standard for the first time 10 years ago, like the baby version. So I hope we've grown now.
You have.
We're adolescents.
We have, actually.
And we have, together with the community, we've developed it. So now looking at this version 4, so what is your take on it?
I've been around for a little while and giving sometimes good, sometimes, unnecessary feedback on things that we could improve. And I love where it's come. I think definitely the fact that, especially on the strategy and governance area, it has taken into account the methodology, the models to kind of simplify the world for the employees, for the organization. It's very humane. It's very value driven. But I want to give one credit to this forum and to this model. You were probably the first, before it was cool, to engage, co-create, and collaborate with customers. You were the first to really go with the people, the humans that were actually going to use it and play with it, and really use real cases, real life cases, to make this open source. And I think that was revolutionary at the time. And
if we think of young professionals, and I would like to say now also young women,
sure,
thinking about their future career. So if somebody would to consider the technology field or whatever it's related, what would be your advice to them?
Do it immediately. Don't think a second, because science and technology, in my opinion, is the great equalizer of the 21st century. You can be from whatever background, ability, sexual identity, gender, whatever, age even, young, not young. When you're a good developer, when you understand systems, when you're able to utilize data and visualize them brilliantly, when you're able to connect concepts not just on the mind, but also hard-coded, you have all the opportunities in the world right now.
What kind of education you would recommend?
Well, don't do what I did. Don't do 2 masters. It's a lot of time. Try to go practical. I think especially right now, I would advise for testing and iterating. So if you are a young graduate from high school, for example, you can consider doing what I did, which was going to a master at Tecoco, which now is called Aalto University of Technology. Or you can try, there is amazing program. I know especially in Finland, there is really practical schools like Metropolia and others, which really give you hands-on experience. And I've had at least the privilege to work with a few students from those schools, and they have hands-on insights on top of theoretical. So maybe, because the times are changing and they're changing fast, if you're interested in technology, start from like short iteration. Go agile in your career path. Learn, develop, work, and learn some more. Because actually I think what my generation still was doing was a long time to study and then a long time to work. I think that's turning around into short time to study, short time to work, lifelong.
We've been also talking a lot about the work and life, balancing the work life and the actual life.
What is that?
So is there a balance, and is there a way to find a balance?
We don't have a choice, unfortunately. I think this year was an exceptional year, but it has taught a lot to everyone about what matters. On a personal note, this was the year where I took my freedom back and decided to explore entrepreneurship, business development. One thing that has always been a concern to me is I would just be the IT gal, and I'm more than that. I think we all are more than one thing. So kind of to get balance, it's about not just defining ourselves as one thing, unless that's really what matters to us. So being able to understand we are a multitude of aspects and we're a multitude of traits, and nurture them all. So I think balance is about being self-aware, surrounding ourselves with things and humans that make us happy, but more importantly, developing, being curious, and spending some time also thinking, not just doing.
Thank you for this interview, Galith.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Catherine.